1,000 peaks crowning a continent, the Alps. Between sea and summits, a trove of natural treasures. Alpine grasslands, Arctic tundra, Mediterranean gardens, gigantic glaciers, gaping canyons echoing the sound of thundering waters, dark woodlands full of mystery, barren crags, and slopes of vivid green. A raw expanse to overwhelm the eye of all but one, the one who soars above it all. It takes an eagle's eye to appreciate the Alps, their majesty and their dimensions. From its rise over their eastern foothills until it lights up their western valleys, the sun takes nearly an hour. Grim north faces, forever steeped in frosty shadows, back to back with sunny southern slopes and valleys. This ice-clad barrier splits Europe into north and south, while its valleys have always been a bridge between east and west. Arching across 1,000 kilometers and rising steadily from eastern lowlands westward to the highest peak, this crumple zone between converging plates sends major rivers to 3 different seas. Surrounded by crowded land, the Alps are shared by 8 nations. Towards sunset, they do not end, but dip down steeply into the depth of the Mediterranean Sea, where they emerged. From the coast below, a whiff of spring arrives, while 2,000 meters higher up, the crests are Arctic, and so is the wildlife. An eagle's flight between these contrasts is just a matter of minutes. Erosion of the rising Alps turns coastal canyons into plains, attractive human habitat. Steep slopes rising from these plains are terraced by thousands of stone walls. Ancient olive gardens are the haunt of Europe's biggest lizard. The ocellated lizard ranges from the western Mediterranean to the foothills of the French and Italian Alps. Spring is the time for a male to visit a female's territory. This is where she lives, a self-dug hole, or one taken over from a rodent. For a while, they move in together. The sunny southwestern fringes of the Alps are now resplendent with bright colors, alive with the rhythmic song of cicadas, fragrant with wild and cultivated herbs. Lavender fields are vibrating with the hum of a zillion bees. A griffon vulture. Plunging from 1,000 meters to nearly sea level, deep canyons like Verdun and Remusat offer ideal nesting places for griffons. Cut out by cold mountain streams, while inhaling warm ocean winds, these canyons invite Mediterranean vegetation and wildlife deep into the Alps. It's a short cycle of rain clouds flowing inland from the nearby sea and these southern rivers rushing back towards the coast. When the morning sun heats up the canyon walls, hundreds of master gliders launch into the thermals. But in this season, every other adult stays grounded. For vultures, of course, the ground is vertical. Males and females take turns feeding their offspring in a lofty crib. The nestlings need lots of moisture gathered from carrion. Along these cliffs, the southern sun and hot upwinds make for a climate like in the Sahara. From this vertical desert, the birds soar into freezing spheres, covering hundreds of kilometers each day. But for griffons, the peaks and glaciers are just flyover country. Also just passing, a young golden eagle, a nomad searching for a space unoccupied by breeding pairs. He's made it through a long winter. Now morning temperatures are finally above freezing. Remaining snow is wet and heavy now. Up here, the sounds of spring are rather different from the bird song and cicadas buzzing in the foothills below. Each sunny afternoon, the rumble and roar of wet snow avalanches echoes from all sides like muffled thunder. An avalanche's megaton momentum will thrust huge boulders across a valley floor and heap up mountains of compacted snow as hard as concrete. Finding a safe and soft spot between ravines is crucial. After 6 months of hibernation deep in the ground, marmots need exercise. Neighborhood scuffles offer a perfect opportunity. Breaking the fast is also welcome, but the leftovers of last year's grazing are still a far cry from the fresh herbs that will soon sprout. Some like it wet. An amphibian way above 2,500 meters. Sounds like a record. Brown frogs have spent the winter in underground bodies of water. On the very day the ice on high alpine lakes begins to break, brown frogs appear as if summoned by a magic reveille. Marmots are impatient to feed, but not the frogs. In their hundreds, they race towards the water. None wants to miss the annual orgy. In order not to freeze to death, the frogs must move in the daylight. Their skins have a built-in sunscreen. Ultraviolet radiation at this altitude is powerful. Just above freezing in here. Quite agreeable. But in the shallows over dark peat, the water is lukewarm, the perfect spot to spawn. The males ride piggyback on the larger females, eager to fertilize the spawn as it's released into the water. The orgy lasts 3 or 4 days. Some males embrace their partners in autumn and cling to them all winter until this super productive spring event. High mountain populations lay bigger eggs than those in the valleys, giving their offspring a boost for the short alpine summer. Voraciously, a warm, dry wind licks the last snow from the slopes. Millions of crocuses have only been waiting for this moment. Alpine flowers now turn the meadows into an inverted, star-spangled sky. Neon colors and fluffy leaves shield many of these plants against aggressive radiation. Some visitors are not coming for the stunning scenery. After a long winter of deprivation, roe deer are arriving from the mountain forest. The females especially need fresh vitamins. They'll soon give birth. The thawing ground is soaked now. Deep down below the surface, cracks and cavities in the bedrock are filling up with water. Springs are gushing, streams are in spate. The mountain's green lungs are breathing again, exhaling the rich fragrance of life. From bursting buds and the bubbling of 1,000 brooks, a strange percussion takes its cue. To capercaillie hens, this sound is music. The artist is eager to impress the female audience. Flashy iridescence, high jumps and wildly flapping wings on a carefully chosen stage are sending a message. Look at me. Enchanted, a female fan has dived down from the gallery right onto the stage floor. She too has something to offer. He's got what he wanted, but it's not the end of the show, which has turned on the neighbors. They want more than just to watch. Lines are crossed. This is his hen, on his very own claim. To be enamored, embattled and embroiled means to be blind to one's surroundings. This hunter, however, is anything but blind. Careful calculation is critical. With an eagle's wingspan, a rapid attack between the trees is risky. When a life is taken, it nurtures others. This eagle was not hunting for himself. These nestlings are a few days old, 2 or 3 days apart. From the moment of birth, they are competitors. For about 6 weeks now, the female stays put while the male provides. Later on, both parents will hunt. For a nestling to become a fledgling, it takes about 12 weeks. In a brief mountain summer, a lot of growing has to be done. While some lives start high up in dazzling sunlight, others begin way down in the dark. Within just a few weeks, a new generation is born in thousands of dens and nests across the Alps. With a litter of 5, suckling and warming the cubs, cleaning the den and hunting will push parents to their limits. Vast tracts of the alpine landscape are woodland. The mix of broadleaf and conifers varies with altitude, orientation and topography, and harbors a wide variety of habitats. A young boreal or Tengmalm's owl, one of 10 different owl species in the Alps, and a typical inhabitant of conifer forests. Even fox parents will hunt in daylight now. For these youngsters, everything is new, exciting. They are still too young to hunt, but they'll soon go for the sort of prey the fox has just missed. Fortunately, there's no shortage of rodents in alpine woods, nor a shortage of enemies. A lynx will not tolerate foxes in its domain. The fox is lucky. The lynx has something else in mind. European lynx, missing from the alpine forests for a century, were reintroduced to various regions in the 1970s. Their preferred prey are roe deer, chamois and young red deer, but also smaller game. Lynx have a habit of hiding it from ravens, foxes and other scavengers. "1,000 meters higher, the snow is gone. Another 1,000 meters and snow still lingers in the shadows. And up here, not just the snow is going. Animal alpinists are shedding their winter wool. Not really a pretty sight. Just weeks ago, this cocky ptarmigan was still completely white. For ibex bucks, getting rid of a mangy coat is an itchy affair. The ptarmigan is also itching, but in a different sense. With some urgency, he's making himself heard, hoping to impress a hen. This may not be the only use of horns, but it might explain their extraordinary length and their elegant curve. Horns, of course, are not just for scratching. Bucks are busy all year round, testing their powers and prowess. The swelling of the male's red eye bulges clearly signals his desire. Already one step ahead, a marmot is busy with parental tasks. The little ones are just over 2 weeks old. Changing the hay is the marmot way of changing nappies. A newly born weighs as much as 2 tablespoons of salt. To survive their first winter, they must increase their birth weight 40-fold within 3 months. Mountain hares have already replaced their snow-white winter coat with the camouflage of summer. Right from birth, they are out in the open. Unlike marmots, they're born with fluffy fur. In cold weather, the mother keeps them warm. With the snow melt nearing its end, The roar and rage of spring's 10,000 torrents has faded, but glacial rivers are now running high. Swelling to a maximum under the midday sun and waning in the cool of night, glacial runoff carries megatons of finely ground rock out into the lowlands. Europe's highest waterfalls and longest cataracts are the glacier's spectacular gift. When glaciers vanish, rivers run dry and valleys are filled with silence. As long as mighty rivers in the sky bring masses of moisture from the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, lush green mountain meadows above the tree line invite summer guests, as they have since the end of the last ice age. Red deer are back. After half a year down in the woods, red deer seem impatient to enjoy the sprawling pastures with their luxury of fresh herbs. Stags shed their antlers after the rut. To grow new ones just takes 3.5 months, from March to mid-July. During the summer, the stags flock together in all-male groups. Calves and their mothers form their own herds. Among red deer, twins are a rare sight. Some ranges are not green at all. Limestone karst formations are usually dry and rugged, uninviting, except for avid alpinists. The grip and traction of these hooves are almost magical. Total control of balance, sureness of foot, and no fear of heights are among the outstanding features alpine ibex have developed in their giddying habitat. It's lonely at the top, and that's exactly why ibex came to live up here. Once humans had conquered the high Alps, ibex were nearly wiped out. Today, they are back, but face new challenges. Ibex are best adapted to the cold and suffer in hot weather. At this time of year, mothers and kids like to play and rest on the last snowfields. But now, instead of old snow, they often rest on dry scree. "500 kilometers to the west and some 2,000 meters up, on granite, a similar scene. Grazing is sparse up here, but the world of the ibex is changing. The high Alps are getting greener, just like the Arctic. On the last snowfields, mothers and aunts run an alpine kindergarten. Some of these aunts are gifted dance instructors. Delighted, the kids join in. And now, refreshments. But all of a sudden, the party is over. For a few weeks, chamois kids are just the perfect size for a hunting eagle. A welcome change from the eagle's staple food, and easier to get. However, 8 out of 10 eagle kills are marmots, most of them youngsters. Even these heavyweights once had a risky childhood. When rough play gets too rough, mother has to interfere. The eagle is always on her mind. The old eagle's trick, pretending to leave, letting the target relax. Then a surprise return under the radar. Decelerating from 200 kilometers an hour. Not even a cheetah would outrun an eagle. They must have heard the mother panting, and also that deadly swoosh of wings. How good to be alive. For the eagle mother too, someone is waiting. Of the 2 hatchlings of 3 months ago, one has survived. It's time for takeoff. The mother goads him on. Knowing that he's hungry, she's placed a carcass. It must be the scariest and yet the most glorious moment in an eagle's life. And so satisfying to a mother. Leaving behind the limits of a single viewpoint, it's an explosion of perspectives. That ravenous hunger is forgotten. Together, they soar. During the year ahead, both parents will teach the young bird how to make it in this mountain wilderness. In this harsh environment, the bud of a glacier crowfoot takes 2 years to blossom. Now the flowers are gone within minutes. Both the snow vole and this hardy plant are Ice Age relics and champions of altitude. No other alpine mammal covers a range from 300 up to 4,700 meters. Down under the scree, snow voles may seem like miniature marmots. But in spite of living under even harsher conditions up here, they do not hibernate, but spend the best part of the year in a labyrinth of tunnels under snow and ice. Everything flows. The light, the ice, even the rocks. Glaciers are gigantic conveyor belts moving enormous volumes of rock. This is the longest valley glacier in the Alps, the famous Aletsch. In 2020, it's still more than 20 kilometers long and nearly 1 kilometer thick. Due to a warming climate, nearly all the glaciers of the Alps are shrinking. By the end of this century, not much will be left of the Aletsch Glacier. Meltwater from the surface seeps deep into the ice, transporting heat into the glacier's core. When a glacier shrinks, sooner or later, accumulations of boulders, scree and sand dropped by the ice flow are conquered by the hardiest of trees. Prominent among these pioneers, the stone pine. How does it get up here? The rasping calls of a special bird echo along the timberline where stone pines define the scenery. The spotted nutcracker and the stone pine have a win-win deal. stone pine seeds are too heavy to be spread by the wind. This is where the nutcracker comes in. Harvesting stone pine seeds is less a matter of strength than skill. Begging from a parent is easier. An adult flying off, his crop bursting with pine nuts. Making sure that no one's watching, he buries his load. Dozens of seeds in a single cache, adding up to 16,000 per season. These larders will get the bird through the winter. Next spring, leftover seeds will sprout. In the high Alps, there are really just two seasons. One short and warm, the other long and cold. Monumental towers guard the king of the Alps. Dwarfing Europe's ancient fortresses, this martial architecture bears witness to an age-old battle, the elements against a rising mass of rock. These ramparts are granite, the rock that sets this mountain apart from the rest of the Alps. Looking east from its top, a skyline of majestic yet lesser peaks. To the west, nothing but big skies. Mont Blanc, the ancient patriarch of the Alps, the highest point. Other parts of the Alps were thrust together from far and wide, stacked, folded and jumbled in the vice of colliding continents. But these granites rose straight from the deep, and they are still rising. It may seem strange, but glaciers accelerate their rise. In high valleys, the snowfall of millennia accumulates. Snow turns into solid ice, but solid is not rigid. Ice under pressure begins to flow downhill. As the valley widens and the ice flows over edges, it's stretched and torn. At the height of summer, once the blanket of snow is gone, the sun can reach deep down. For decades, summers have been getting hotter, with a new record nearly every year. Today, glaciers are melting, but for eons the scraping, scouring, plucking and polishing action of massive ice flows, many times mightier than those we see today, have worn down the Alps. Thousands of meters of rock have been removed, an enormous weight loss, enabling the Alps to rise. Below the glaciers and above the tree line, sprawling grasslands are the summer resort of red deer. But the summer is gone, and the rut is all but over. The stags are totally exhausted, worn out and bruised like warriors returning from combat. And combat it truly was. Many hinds had gathered on this rutting ground and attracted many stags. Where strong stags compete for females, there are battles. For dominant stags defending a harem, that means relentless stress. After 2 weeks of total exertion, the stags stay on for a few more quiet weeks to heal their wounds and regain strength to face the winter. Clear, frosty nights and frigid morning mists mark the change of the season. In the skies, the tide has turned. From now on, the northerlies prevail. Returning from a reconnaissance flight, the eagle has seen all he needs to know. A marmot den is something an eagle will remember, even until next spring. Marmots are twice as fat now as in the spring, unlike stags, who've just lost 1/5 of their body mass. For half a year, these alpine rodents have stuffed themselves. Now it's time to make the den cozy for a long winter underground. To hold out 6 months underground, you want a comfy home. In this den, the male prepares the bedding. His mate supplies the hay. Out there, it's risky. But as long as the chuffs are watching, one can relax. A safe, well-furnished den is a marmot's dream. But it's not quite there yet. More padding is wanted. Even when the bed's perfect, with a restless bedfellow, a good rest is hard to get. Marmots have to stay put all winter, while the chuffs can escape to a milder sphere. Way below, at the foot of the mountain, autumn still has a few short but sunny days in store before winter arrives. Magically, overnight, maples and larches have turned to gold. Rooted in the sediments of an ancient ocean, vertical forests now shine in the brightest hues. But soon, the scenery will be monochrome. In hidden valleys of the southern Alps, a revenant has been secretly about for a few decades now. The Slovenian, Italian and Austrian Alps have seen the cautious, gradual return of an old native who had been missing from almost the entire mountain range for a century. A brown bear mother and her nearly grown-up cubs feeding on beech nuts. They're getting ready to hibernate in a well-hidden cave, maybe together for one last winter. When ravens appear, it may be taken for a sign. Alerted, one of the youngsters tests the wind. The mother lets him take the lead, a teaching moment. That's what the ravens meant. A stag, gored in the rut. Something the cubs have never seen before. Warily, they explore. But then they really go at it. Every extra pound on their ribs will help to get over the winter. This might be the family's last shared meal before they go their separate ways. Ravens, early birds at any carcass, but they need big predators to carve it up. It's best to wait a while. These wise birds know first come, first served is not a natural right. The wind is getting colder, sharper. A thousand mountain streams have fallen silent. Warm hues of autumn belie the coming cold. Glowing in the sunset, the cold rocks of these famous peaks conjure up memories of a distant, much warmer past. A young eagle in search of a territory of his own explores the southern limestone Alps, stretching across Slovenia, Austria, and Italy. The limestone of Italy's Dolomites has nothing in common with the granites of Mont Blanc. The Dolomites are only half as high, yet their breathtaking panoramas can vie with any icon of the Alps. Erosion grinds its sculptures down to what they once were, sand and silt in a warm, shallow sea. Layer by layer, over more than 200 million years, skeletons of marine organisms accumulated enormous bodies of sediment on the ocean floor. Africa's collision with Europe pressed them up into the sky. Thus, a tropical seafloor became the habitat of an Ice Age remnant. Arctic or mountain hares once inhabited the cold plains of Ice Age Europe. When the climate turned warm, they retreated northward to the Arctic and up to the higher regions of the Alps. Scandinavian and alpine populations are now 2,000 kilometers apart. Adapting their camouflage, mountain hares change their fur twice a year. A few more weeks, and their winter coats will be as white as snow. Meanwhile, it's best to stay alert and near hiding places. With marmots already underground, the eagle has set his sights on hares. An eagle's eye works like a powerful zoom lens. He can spot his prey long before it can spot him. Bungled stealth attack. This eagle is still a rookie. A majestic rookie by any means. The low sun dazzles the eyes. But the moment it's hidden, the cold breath of the mountains makes the body shiver. Those who remain up high and out in the open must be well prepared for harsh days ahead. Down in the valleys below the fog, it's now often colder than on the high slopes. Soon the bears will have disappeared into their winter dens. Deer descend to their winter quarters in the forest. Long before the first snowfall, winter sends its harbingers. Each night now, the temperature plummets below freezing. The mirrors of 1,000 mountain lakes will soon go blind. Up among the crags, the snow is here to stay, setting the stage for a breathtaking spectacle. Chamois don't fear the cold, quite the opposite. After languishing in humid summer heat, they are now in their element. On high slopes and crests, the wind will sweep away the snow, so that the chamois can find grazing even in winter. One who has prudently prepared for a long winter is the spotted nutcracker, having stashed thousands of pine seeds in hundreds of deposits in the ground along the timberline. The challenge is to find these larders under the snow. This takes nearly magic memory. His bird brain has stored a precise topographical map. A 3D map of a vast and complex terrain, which looks very different now than it did in autumn. Sometimes the ground is frozen so hard that the nutcracker cannot get all the seeds he has buried. These seeds will sprout in spring. Thus the flying forester rejuvenates the stock of pines from which his own species will profit for centuries to come. Among the chamois, the mood is tense. Bucks and females are now coming together. It's all about the future of their population. Bucks spray their coats with sperm and urine, personal perfume any female will remember. A secretion from glands at the base of a buck's horns marks his claim near the female's stamping ground. Rivaling bucks tax each other. Each buck needs to decide, attack or retreat. Counterattack or exhaust the opponent. Anything but surrender. A performance and a stage to take one's breath away. This is the sovereign airspace of a pair of golden eagles. Over the years, they've built a number of nests around here. They do not breed each year, but soon there will be 2 eggs in one of the nests. Across the Alps, well over 1,000 breeding pairs are occupying all the suitable territories. Breeding success greatly depends on how well a pair gets through the winter. Golden eagles stay together for life, for 3 decades and more. Being born up here means being born to climb and to flourish in Arctic conditions. Each morning, the females scramble up to the ridges where the wind has cleared away the snow and they can feed. The bucks follow. It's not an easy climb. A film of frozen fog covers these limestone rocks in the southern Alps. This is dangerous terrain. In early winter, bucks become obtrusive stalkers. Every move she makes, every step she takes, a buck will be watching. There's no liquid water up here, yet ibex stay up high all winter. A gang of young bucks has closed in on a female leading the kid. With their tongues and a special organ on their gums, they taste the scent she emits, which signals her readiness to mate. She's the focus of attention, but indifferent to these youngsters. To be taken seriously as a suitor, a buck must be at least 6 years old. But it's rare that bucks under 9 or 10 years get to mate. 2 mature, strong bucks have been standing back and watching. One of these she might choose. But the choice is often made by fate. He's out of the race, for good. A broken leg up here means death. Fate and the weather turn quickly in the Alps. A humid southerly from the Mediterranean hitting the high ridges can bring gale-force winds and masses of snow. To avoid nasty weather from any direction, ibex and chamois try to be in the right place at the right time. Mountain hares let the wind work for them, exploiting snowdrifts for shelter. In the same way, ptarmigans will calmly sit out any storm for days. Not even an eagle can see them now. For the golden eagle, neither an Arctic nor a high mountain species, these are hard times. Six feet under is the perfect place to truly rest in peace. Marmots cozy up as families to keep warm. The temperature inside the den decreases gradually from 15 degrees in autumn to freezing in spring. The animals also lower their body temperature down to about 5 degrees plus. They survive on their body's storage of fat and water. With thick layers of snow and soil on top, the entrance to their extensive den securely blocked, the marmot is nature's paragon of bunker mentality. There's not the slightest draft down here, no matter how hard the storm may blow outside. In such weather, the zone above the tree line is a hostile place. Roe deer and red deer are seeking shelter in the mountain forest. But more and more often in recent years, they are not alone here. Wolves had almost become extinct in the Alps by the early 20th century. About a century later, their tracks in the snow appeared again. For thousands of years, red deer would migrate from the high Alps down to the floodplains of big rivers, but their migration routes are now cut off by roads and towns, so they stay in the mountain forest. Covered in water-repellent top hair over a fluffy layer of wool, they can deal with the cold. It's the deep snow that wears them down, and the lack of forage, forcing them to subsist on a meager diet of bark and branches. Their bodies are now in energy conservation mode. In this state, having to flee from a threat will critically tax their reserves. For fast-flowing mountain rivers to freeze over, temperatures must drop further, and they will. The deer limit their movements to trampled paths between resting and feeding areas and nearby drinking places. In contrast to deer, a wolf's energy level stays high. Blood circulation never slows. Being much lighter than deer, wolves do not sink into deep snow as easily. After generations without wolves, bears, and lynx in the Alps, deer are beginning to learn again about big predators. For a deer, the extra stress of a chase lowers the chances of surviving the winter. Remote valleys of the Alps have been abandoned by people in recent decades. Fortunate for red deer, the new wilderness offers alternative prey. One particular species has invited back the wolf. A burly wild boar would be too risky a quarry for a single wolf. But as a team, the pack is confident it can take on a single animal. Poor judgment. This individual seems rather powerful. Better to let it go. But somewhere, there's always a ready meal. Worn out by the rut, the trials of winter have proved too much for an old stag. Winter is a hostile season. Up among the peaks, it never really ends. The monumental Matterhorn and the massive Mont Blanc have featured as the thrones of winter in ancient alpine lore. No matter how often the sun has risen during past millennia, so far it's never thawed away the snow on these iconic summits, never stripped them of their mantle of majesty. However stunning the snow-capped Alps may appear from distant lowlands, to fully appreciate their glory, their vastness and complexity, one must ride the winds like an eagle. But the face of the Alps is changing. A thick new layer of fresh winter snow veils the rapid melt of what used to be called the eternal ice. Over eons, at a glacial pace, ice has been grinding down the rocks. Now, a warming climate bears down on the glaciers. In their rapid demise, winter is just a minor break. Even the harshest winter has its balmy days. The storm is over, but other risks persist. Ptarmigans and hares are now replacing marmots on the eagle's menu. But the little animals in their winter suits are lucky. The eagle is distracted. A huge bearded vulture allows no stranger near his nest. Ignoring the sky, the youngsters are caught up in a play fight. In the eastern Alps, tracks in the fresh snow are evidence of chamois on their way back up to the high ridges. The forest offered shelter from the wind, but little food. The snow now lies deep. It's only on wind-swept hilltops where some grazing might be found. After a blizzard, the steep lee side of a mountain can turn into a hazard zone. The wind, the architect of avalanches, has moved enormous volumes of snow. Along the edges, it has piled up huge drifts. Tons and tons of wind-pressed snow projecting from sheer cliffs are a threat to every living thing below. Impossible to say when the spell will break. The speed and force of the White Death is beyond comprehension. Heart-stopping violence fades into peaceful silence. A new sunrise, an expression of nature's indifference. The misfortune of some is fortunate for others. Ravens, as always, the first to descend on a funeral feast. A frozen chamois is not exactly fast food, yet the ravens must be quick before the sovereign claims his own. Both ravens and eagles depend on avalanche victims to make it through the winter and get ready for an early breeding season. Cleanliness is next to godliness, the old saying goes. And why not mix in a little playfulness? When dense fogs fill the valleys, they give a vague impression of an Ice Age panorama of the Alps some 20,000 years ago. Back then, only the highest peaks would protrude from the ice, such as the Grossglockner, Austria's highest mountain. It's been the Ice Ages that sculpted the rising Alps and ground them down to their present size. Where the ice has vanished, grassland and woodland has conquered the ground, inviting new inhabitants. Europe's biggest cat. The Eurasian lynx is another revenant to the Alps, after a century of absence. The lynx is an elusive, solitary hunter. Roe deer, abundant in alpine forests, are his preferred prey. Like most cats, the lynx hunts by surprise, not chase. Between hunter and hunted, it's a battle of the senses. Both animals pick up the slightest sound, the smallest movement. Cats can move noiselessly, like ghosts. Success depends on getting close enough for a surprise attack. The frustration is shared. The waters are beginning to flow again. The ice is gone. Warm winds set off the snowmelt. Even under the snow, the marmot's inner clock is right on time. There's nothing in these mountains that would escape an eagle's eye. High up on a tiny ledge, two delicate new lives have just begun. As spring cascades towards another alpine summer, thousands of parents will again raise the next generation of wildlife in the Alps.